Welcome to this episode of the AEC Engineering and Technology Podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping engineering professionals find technology that fits their needs. In this episode, I'll be speaking with Hanna PLS, Principal and Manager of Terrestrial Geospatial Services at Colliers Engineering and Design. Kevin's journey in surveying has been nothing short of remarkable, and in this episode, he'll provide some great insights to talk about his experiences in the fascinating field of laser scanning and reality capture. Whether you're considering a career in laser scanning or simply just curious about this intriguing field, you are in for a treat. With that, let's jump into today's episode.
Thank you to EMI's sponsor, Colliers Engineering and Design, a national full-service A&E firm. As an industry leader, CED believes it has a responsibility to ensure the built environment is constructed with a commitment to the inclusivity, health, and welfare of our people, clients, and communities. CED's expansion has fostered an enterprising culture that provides opportunities for employees to grow their careers while accelerating their personal and professional success. For more information about how you can join their team, find them on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, or visit their website at colliersengineering.com.
Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Nick. It's great to be here, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Likewise, and I know we were just catching up a little bit earlier, so why don't we jump right in? Could you tell us a little bit more about your surveying career path and how you arrived at your current position as the National Practice Leader for Terrestrial Geospatial Services at Colliers Engineering and Design?
Sure, happy to do that. So I came here in 1986, a long time ago, from Dublin, Ireland. I was a graduate of the Dublin Institute of Technology, and started at the bottom and worked my way up, I suppose. I worked in conventional survey, boundary surveying, right-of-way, highway. I was fortunate that along the way I had a couple of really, really good mentors. I ended up going back to school again. Thought it all out. Of course, I waited till I was married and had 3 kids. So that took a few years to get that. Once I got my degree in survey engineering technology, that was NJIT. The next natural step was to get my license. So I became professionally licensed in New Jersey. And at that point, I'm like, well, where am I going now? So I'm one of those 3D guys. It's always interested me. And early on, I'd seen in the magazines that were talking about this LiDAR. And there was this piece of equipment called Cyrax. And I'm like, quite honestly, it looked really, really cool. So from there, I got really immersed in terrestrial laser scanning, LiDAR. There's so many different terms. And it's been about 20 years now that I've been using this technology with my surveying experience. So I came here to Colliers about 13 years ago and started the scanning discipline here at Colliers Engineering Design. And now it's ubiquitous. We offer 3D laser scanning throughout all of our 70 plus offices. So always challenging, always new stuff coming up. So that's where I got to where I am right now.
And you kind of mentioned, your start in surveying from degree to licensure to write that kind of magazine article that piqued your interest. Do you have any other specific experiences or projects that really really showed your love for laser scanning and reality capture?
Yeah, certainly. There's many of them. First of all, being a surveyor, we're pragmatists. By definition, we're measurement scientists. So frequently the work we do, there's risk involved. And obviously laser scanning is non-tactile. You don't have to go stand there and take the measurements anymore. So it started off with a highway project, actually a rock remediation job, where I really felt that scanning offered a rapid and safe way to do this. It was challenging, and at the time, the technology was rather new. Processing time took a little bit longer, but the deliverable in the end was fantastic. The client was delighted with it. It's only gotten better since then. There's been equipment improvements with the software and the equipment. But I think that first project, I had to prove to myself and to my employer, look, this stuff works. So from there, that was a highway project. And then as my career possessed and I was, progressed, and I was fortunate that other challenges came up, I tried to integrate 3D laser scanning into that approach, and at the same time encourage others to learn about this, because as a practitioner, you can't do it all on your own. And day in, day out, week in, week out, we use this technology all the time. But it's worth mentioning that my training and field experience as a licensed land surveyor has always served me well with this technology.
Which is great to hear, because, you hear in our industry, right, that there's always this adoption curve when it comes to new technologies, right? People aren't always sure what they're going to get out of it, especially if they're like used to some of the tried and true. Could you talk a little bit about, project teams and teamwork as it relates to these newer technologies, right? Like, because if you say on this project, right, proved the usefulness of the technology on the roadway project, right, I'm sure there was a little bit of a process in getting the rest of your team to buy into what you were doing.
Certainly. So the important thing is, you've got to connect with people, and people have to have a comfort level with it. For example, I remember when we started to use PCs. That's how long I've been in the game. And people, we were told that you're going to work off a server. Everybody was very wary of it, but slowly but surely people became to accept it, start to accept it. Similarly with the laser scanning technology, I had to kind of ease people into it, if you will, and show them that it actually worked. But I'm glad you mentioned teamwork, because you cannot do it all on your own. I mean, and there's a phrase we use here at Colliers Engineering Design. It goes like this. It goes, teamwork for Colliers is leveraging our collective strengths and learning from our mistakes. In other words, I may have a vision to do something, but the beauty of being part of a team is someone may look at it from a different angle, and collectively we'll come up with a approach that works, meets or exceeds the client's expectations. And most importantly, since you touched on it there, we've got QA, QC. We can check our data to make sure that the data is correct. It's wonderful when you look at a piece of scan data, it's just amazing. But our QA, QC procedures are very, very important. So I will say that with the younger generation, now people, maybe my own, they absorb the concepts, are more open to them. Now I find, than let's say 15 years ago when it was all very, very new. But at this stage, laser scanning is ubiquitous. More and more people use them, but teamwork is a key component, because the other thing is with a laser scanner, a day's worth of work in 8 hours, you're gathering so much information that on the backside and the office side of things, you can keep people busy for, quite a long time. Whether it's modeling, there's many different modeling, deformation analysis. There's so much information being gathered in that 8 hours, let's say, as a user example, to keep people busy. So that's a big part of it.
Which, and that's interesting now that you've mentioned, right, between 15 years ago and today, right, some technologies were newer and they've slowly kind of been absorbed into the mainstream. But based on your career, right, as a technical specialist in laser scanning, 3D modeling, right, you've pretty much seen it all to this point. But what do you see the future of this field and this industry being, right? Like, what emerging technologies do you think are on their way, and like, where is this all going?
Well, I'll give you one example. You can see behind me, there's a laser scanner there. The equipment is getting smaller, lighter, easier to use. If you look at anything, I joke sometimes, I go, the go button gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So I think it's going to be more available to people. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw some form of laser scanner available to contractors. You may even see it in, your Home Depot stores and stuff like that, as a general application. The experience you'll need in the background, particularly in civil, mechanical, in the nuclear field, that doesn't go away. But the equipment's, the data capture side of things is going to get a lot easier. I'm hoping that data compression. Right now, we're still tied to storing information on a solid state drive on a scanner, downloading it, uploading it, and working on it. I wouldn't be surprised if at some stage you're scanning and it goes to the cloud and it's back at the office by the time you get there. You know, I could see that happening in the terms of data compression. And then there's no doubt about it, AI is, you know, not going away. So for the registration side of things, I know in some softwares right now, they're using AI to process data, but that's going to become ubiquitous too, so that the registration process will be a lot quicker. It'll be a push button operation. And then too, I think on the modeling side too, that's going to be accelerated too. So smaller, quicker, easier to use, but I want to make an important point. It's not going to be solution to everything. Experience and understanding the importance of accuracy doesn't really go away, but more and more people will be able to use the equipment. And, hopefully too, it'll create new opportunities. The fear was when laser scanning first came on the market, like, oh, we're going to lose work. No, what it did was it created newer opportunities for people in the surveying and civil world to use their hard-won experience with this technology. So hopefully it'll create new opportunities as well.
And that's another great point, because I do think, especially in our field, sometimes it's underappreciated how, many, let's say, mundane tasks there are, right? Where you're like, I need to do it. It's part of the project, but I wish I could do X instead. And these emerging technologies really offer those opportunities because, like you said, right, you can collect so much data in the field and allow your team back in the office to do things I'm sure they couldn't do 15 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. And I think once people understand that there is something better in it for them, it actually helps them better adopt what these emerging technologies have to offer.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's worth mentioning too, with this technology, one of the most important parts for us at Colliers Engineering is safety. Number one, safety. If you think about laser scanning in, working in electrified environments, substations, nuclear plants, highways, rail lines, electrified rail, being in those environments, human beings being, there's always an element of risk. And if you can gather information from a safe distance without having to physically be there, that's a big plus. And like you mentioned a second ago, Nick, you're gathering so much information in a relatively short period of time. With that one mobilization, typically if you were to get items A through F, you would do that conventionally. But with laser scanning now, you're getting A through Z with that one mobilization. So logistically, you're capturing everything in one visit, if you will. And then you can mine that data at a given time, depending on a certain set of requirements, and then go back to it at a later date and pull out even more information. So there's value there with laser scanning. So safety and value are two key features with this technology.
And let's kind of move to the next topic as part of this discussion, right? So there's, as we were talking about earlier, right, there's a difference between like laser scanning and reality capture and surveying, right? Today, they're tightly linked because a lot of surveying firms are using reality capture techniques. But how does laser scanning and reality capture contribute to the survey geospatial discipline? And then how does BIM fit into all of this, right? Because there's talk of, scan to BIM and using the data you collect in the field to make models. But what is your take on how it all kind of comes together?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, Nick, because up until now, we've been talking LiDAR. But as you said there, reality capture. So now it's LiDAR and imagery, 3D photography, bubble views, what have you. So that's an even easier, from a business point of view, an even easier sell. There's a certain amount of know-how and maybe 3D awareness requirements to use LiDAR data. But with 3D imagery, everybody is familiar with that now, So the beauty of it is that people can now visit virtually visit a space. It could be a warehouse, a hospital where they're doing fit outs, repurposing, and they're looking at imagery. But the beauty is you've got the scan data in the background. So not only can they look at this beautiful immersive imagery that you can push your way through, and it's point and click, anybody can do it, but you also have the added value of metrics. You can take measurements from the photographs. And it's great to see people's faces light up like, really? You can get the width of a doorway? You can get the height of a heather? You can measure pipe lengths? So the tools in these packages, and there's quite a few of them, some are better than others. Number one, the imagery is easier for people to embrace, but then they find out because of the LiDAR, the scanning in the background, it's got a useful tool. So for example, let's say real estate or commercial properties, people want to know widths and heights. They want to know floor areas and stuff like that for architectural requirements or repurposing. That's all combined into one package now with reality capture. So you've got the reality capture, the built environment, the imagery all rolled into one. They don't always know it there, but they're sure grateful to see those tools. So immersive imagery is a very big part of laser scanning now too, but you hear more about reality capture. I mean, following on from that too is Revit modeling and building information modeling. What are you doing in a BIM? You're creating a model. Historically, BIM, Revit, for example, Autodesk Revit was built conceptually. Now you have the beauty of the scan data where you're modeling in place. So if you had a conceptual model built, now you can take the scan data, build a model from the scan and compare it to do and see, is your concept going to work? And frequently, while conceptual models are wonderful, people want an actual real model. So there's the beauty of the scan data where we're modeling from the LiDAR data and, you know, the wonders of the software and a lot of skilled know-how too on the practitioner side of thing. That's another component of laser scanning and offers another service there to an even larger population of people. And it's also very, very easy to share. That's a big selling point with reality capture and the BIM environment.
And it's great how you've pulled it all together, right? Because there's different stakeholders who have different needs, right? Like let's use a Matterport tour as an example. Say like a potential tenant or a homeowner might be interested more in the 360 photographs, right? Their contractor might be more interested in pulling dimensions to help them remodel. And their real estate agent might care about both because they're interested in marketing the property, you know, gathering measurements for square footage, right? So it's all there. So all stakeholders can do so. And then as you alluded to more with like scan to BIM and things of that nature, right? Now you go from, and I've experienced this, right? Trying to model something from as-built drawings from 40 years ago, but now you have the capability to just scan something as is and bring in a true representation of the built environment today, which is awesome because you're no longer just relying on, you know, a guess or some form of documentation from years and years ago. You're actually able to get the data that you need today with the level of accuracy required.
Yeah, you know, you said something there that just sparked something on my mind, and I'd be remiss, as they say, if I didn't say it. So up until now, you know, you're scanning, you know, it's on a tripod. That has a disadvantage too, in terms of how quickly you can gather the data. So the whole world now of dynamic scanning or IMMS, indoor mobile mapping systems, that's a whole other new area too, where you're essentially putting the scanner and the cameras on your person and walking around the environment. As you're walking around, you're gathering all this data. And by and large, most Revit modeling, reality capture work that I'm involved with is IMMS or dynamic scanning, where you're walking around, whether it's a device aware, I don't want to mention any brand names, or you're actually holding the device. The manufacturers are all going in that too. That's a requirement too. They want the data rapidly and also the processing time rapidly, but they want the imagery. So reality capture, that's the thing right now. That's where it's going. And, I mentioned before about, when this technology came in many years ago, people were like, well, we're going to lose our jobs. More and more people in my discipline are getting involved with that. You should never cut your nose off to spite your face. If there's a market for it, go after it. Granted, there's different accuracy requirements, but getting back to my point at the start of our conversation, there's different scanners for different applications, but certainly dynamic scanning, immersive imagery is in high demand nowadays.
So, Kevin, with all of this technology, right, that just seems to be kind of coming at us like a whirlwind, right? Like, what is the best way for professionals in your industry to stay updated with the trends and the new technologies, right? Because there's always going to be something new in the market, but do you have a strategy that you help your people, like, let's say, employ to just keep up with just this rapid pace of growth of technology?
Sure. Well, number one, unsurprisingly enough, is it tested. Don't try something new in a large project. Large projects have larger mistakes. So I would say if you know somebody, there's lots of work out there. Talk to people that know about that if you can. There's so much on the internet as well. And manufacturers are only too willing to come out and give you demonstrations on this equipment where you can actually test it out and try it for yourself. What I've seen happen is, for smaller organizations, and they're in the majority, the financial outlay for buying equipment can be a heavy load. And you could have someone else gather the data and you process it yourself. So I would say know exactly what your needs are. Talk to the manufacturers. There's an awful lot of useful information on the internet, and more people are actually doing it. But you've got to make sure that you're buying the right equipment for the type of work you're doing, because as I keep saying, there's different equipment, hardware, be it scanners and software for different applications. So I'd say do your homework first and foremost. And the thing about it is too, the equipment is getting easier to use. The learning curve is a lot shallower. So that's a plus too. Previously, it could be rather cumbersome, data management, file management, processing and stuff like that was a lot harder, because you want to get up and running and you want to start making money with it at the end of the day, So it's gotten a lot easier, but be aggressive and know what type of products you plan on using this technology for. There's no easy way around that.
Yeah, and that's so true, right? It's just like know your methodology, right? Know your first principles, know your product, and know what the end result's going to be. Because as I'm sure you can attest to, right? Like different scanners, different client needs, right? Different outcomes. And it's just a matter of understanding how it all comes together to just pick the best process for the desired end result.
Mm-hmm. And oftentimes with this type of technology, you can take a hybrid approach where you use your own conventional approaches with this technology, and then the sky's the limit too with lighter technology. I've been involved with projects where we're using tripod, static scanning with mobile and aerial and combine them all together. But of course, the glue that put them all together was good old survey control. That's a big component of it. So the sky is the limits there with that.
Excellent. Well, Kevin, it's been a pleasure, getting you on the show here and getting to know a little more about what you guys are doing over at Colliers Engineering and Design. But is there any final pieces of advice you'd give to anyone who's an aspiring survey professional, particularly those who are interested in reality capture, laser scanning, and the other technologies we've talked about today?
Well, that's a very topical question. I'd say to people interested in getting into the field is it's very cool. It's very, very cool. And I think for younger professionals getting into the field, take a closer look at laser scanning. There's many opportunities for you where you can create a niche for yourself. We're still exploring ways to use this technology. So that alone, because of the tech, it's high tech, it's cool, it's very interesting. I've been in different parts of the world. I never thought I'd be doing this with laser scanning. So that's attractive. And also it's relatively easier to learn. And people are growing up now, not myself, obviously, you know, in the iPhone world. So that in itself kind of prepares people for this technology. That's really it, you know, to get young people interested in technology and see that this field there's many different aspects that you could end up being a specialist with this technology. And lateral thinking out of the box, that's the big appeal with LiDAR and immersive imagery.
Excellent. Well, again, Kevin, a pleasure having you on the show. What's the best way for the audience to connect with you if they have any more questions about what we talked about today?
Sure. The easiest thing is to go on to the Colliers Engineering and Design website. And my email is kevin.hanna@collierseng.com. That's COLLIERSENG.com. But the easiest way is to go on to the Colliers website, Colliers Engineering and Design, I should say.
And we'll have that information in the show notes for anyone.
Oh, good to know. Good to know.
Who didn't quite catch that. But again, Kevin, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So we will catch you next time. Thank you so much.
All right. It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Please remember, you can find the show notes for this episode, aectechpodcast.com. There, you'll find a summary of the key points discussed in today's episode, as well as links to any of the resources, websites, or books mentioned during this episode. Until next time, I wish you the best in all of your engineering and technology endeavors. Thank you.